afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Housing Accelerator Program application webinar today, hosted by the Department of Housing and Development Office. My name is Mary, and our team members are Jasmine and Shannon Epps, with the Director of Grant Administrators, Paul Stanford. Welcome. And we're going to leave time at the end for questions and answers. And if you have any questions, you can always put them in our chat and we will get back to you.
Hey, Mary, I don't think you're sharing your screen for the presentation. At least I don't see it.
No?
Hey folks, did you all see my note? I can't join today's meeting. Oh, I put a note in the chat. Pardon me? You say what?
That's okay. We can,
you all can proceed without me? Okay. Yeah. I put a note in the chat. We're doing the
that's right. The Q&A for the sort of about the way accurate about that today.
Okay, Mary, we see it.
You got it? Okay. Welcome to the Housing Accelerator Program application webinar this afternoon. This is being recorded and we are going to take questions, but if you have questions right now, you can keep it in our chat and you will get a reply from our other team members, Shannon and Jasmine. And I'll just continue. The NOFA schedule, obviously the public NOFA announcement was launched on September 6th of this year. The NOFA application portal opened the week of September 18th, 2023, and the pre-proposal conference was held on September 14th, 2023. And obviously today we're here at the question workshop, and the application submission deadline is November 20th, and the awards will be granted in December of 2023. Through this notice of funding availability, the Baltimore City Department of Housing and Development, Community Development is making up to $16 million available from the Housing Accelerating Fund and up to $15 million available from the American Rescue Plan for the Home Investment Partnership Program, HOME, to support the construction of permanent supportive housing, or PSH, for individuals and families who are homeless, at risk of homelessness, and in other vulnerable positions. Subject to demand, affordable housing projects without PSH units will be considered for funding under this NOFA. Closing financing gaps to allow potential projects with supportive housing units to proceed to development. Secure set-asides of supportive housing units within housing. Within housing projects already under development through equity investments. Provide financing to develop new projects and enable their competition for other financing through pre-development financing grants or loans. This NOFA is limited to applicants that are either a nonprofit, for-profit, or joint ventures that are seeking funds to create units accessible and dedicated for permanent supportive housing populations and other affordable housing projects. I'd like to give the floor to Angel Haskins Hill.
Thank you, Mary. Good afternoon, everyone. Let's see, let me share my screen. One second. Nope. Alrighty. Can everyone see the screen? I can't see any. If someone can just say yes. Am I
Not yet, not yet, Angel. We can't see your screen.
No? Okay. Oh, goodness. I don't know what happened. One second. Are you seeing anything now? Let's see.
There we go. It's coming up. Now we see it, Angel.
Okay. But now I don't see. Terrible. Okay. We are actually going to start with our continuum of care slide. Where did it go? My apologies again. There we go. Okay. Oh, so much better. Thank you for your patience. We're actually going to start with our continuum of care portion of our presentation that will be shared with us by Camille. Camille, I'll turn it over to you for now.
Great, thank you, Angel.
You're
My
welcome.
name is Camille Watney. I'm the Interim Chief of Policy and Partnership at MOHS, or the Mayor's Office of Homeless Services. I'm just going to speak briefly today about the continuum of care. The continuum of care is a group of stakeholders in Baltimore City and many jurisdictions across the country. It's a structure that's required by the Housing and Urban Development. And it's a group of entities, including government agencies, service providers, people with lived experience of homelessness, funders, representatives from the health and behavioral health systems, advocates, and a wide array of other stakeholders who are interested in making homelessness rare, brief, and non-recurring in Baltimore City. The Baltimore City Continuum of Care is known as the Journey Home. And I know some of you on this call are members, either on the board or various action committees or as general participants. So the COC is a critical entity in the city that directs HUD funding decisions. The Mayor's Office of Homeless Services is the collaborative applicant for the continuum of care in the city. And so we work very closely with the COC to make funding decisions and coordinate plans to advance programming and projects that address homelessness and serve families in our community. So I included a link here at the bottom if the slides are shared out after, or I could also drop in the chat. We always welcome new members of the listserv. You'll receive updates, invitations to meetings, and receive more information. It's a really incredible group of service providers as well as individuals doing this work, and is critical to our system here in the city. So I'll pass it back over to Angel.
Thank you, Camille. So again, my name is Angel Haskins Hill, and I'm with the Mayor's Office of Homeless Services, and I serve as the Coordinated Access Manager. Coordinated Access is the centralized process for assessing persons in need of homeless services to determine the appropriate service type and housing option. It is a standard assessment process designed to assist in resolving the homelessness of those living in shelters, on the streets, or in places that are just not meant for human habitation. In terms of eligibility for coordinated access, it is, excuse me, I'm sorry, coordinated access participating programs, we use only Category 1 and Category 4 for the purpose of determining eligibility. And so Category 1 is looking at individuals who are literally homeless, whether if that's an individual or a family who does not have a fixed, regular, or adequate nighttime residence, meaning that they are sleeping in places, public or private places that are not meant for human habitation, living in publicly or privately operated shelters designed to provide temporary living arrangements, or they've exited an institution where that individual resided for 90 days or less. And then prior to going into that institution, they were staying in a place, in a shelter or a place not meant for human habitation. We are also looking at supporting individuals who fall into Category 4, which would be persons fleeing or attempting to flee domestic violence. And that is defined by someone, in this instance, they have no other residence or they lack the resources and or support network to obtain other permanent housing. So those are the individuals that we primarily look to house and support through our coordinated access system. In terms of our workflow, I'll just go through this really quickly. Individuals are connected to the coordinated access system by going to one of our access points, which would be navigators throughout Baltimore City to do that. After the assessment is completed, then the client then moves to the navigation phase, where we're looking at those that are most likely to be matched. And so there's some support given to those individuals to gather their information, eligibility documents, and preparation to receive the housing offer. Then we have our actual housing match. So at that time, the coordinated access team will identify those individuals who've been matched. We contact the navigating agency so that they can assist the individual still in connecting with the provider that they've been matched to complete the intake. At that intake, the enrollment, that is when the enrollment is officially starting. And after that happens, then there's the inspection, and inspection of the property is required prior to the client actually moving in. And then the best part that we all love to see for our families is the opportunity to actually move in to the property that they accepted, has been inspected, that they get to move into that option. There are a number, I mentioned navigating agencies earlier. There are a number of navigation agencies in our system. We currently have over 28 agencies throughout Baltimore City, and that's comprised of shelters, our outreach teams, day programs, and drop-in centers. And we are in the process of identifying additional agencies that are interested in partnering with us to become a navigator. This is a list of some of them. And again, this slide will be, if the slides are shared with you all, we'll make sure that you have access to this information. But we clearly have a vast number of partners already in this process, and we're looking to add more. This is just a little information in terms of where we are with our numbers. We currently have, this was as of last week, approximately 1,575 clients in our system. We average over 2,000 applicants, though, who are seeking housing annually. And how those vacancies are filled, providers with housing vacancies, they actually contact us to let us know that they have a vacancy. They post that vacancy to our system, and then we work to fill that vacancy as quickly as possible. To ensure that the vacancies are filled as quickly as possible, our workflow includes regular touch points with navigators to submit eligibility documents for clients most likely to be matched. So once we, through a regular check of the system, we're looking for clients with certain vulnerability, with a certain vulnerability score, and we reach out to that navigator to say, hey, there's a strong possibility that your client is going to be matched to a housing offer in our system. Please begin to work with that client to gather the documents, because once we make the match, we certainly don't want to delay this process. As Camille mentioned earlier, we want to make homeless as brief as possible. And so this is our way of combating that issue that can happen if there's a delay in the client having all of the necessary information that the housing provider is in need of. We also host bi-weekly case conferencing meetings, and we're looking at each subpopulation. And in those meetings, we're talking about, where our clients in their process of gathering their documents. If someone has been matched to a housing offer, has the intake been scheduled? We want to remove any barriers that may be existing to that individual meeting with the provider to complete the intake and ultimately moving into their new home. There's also weekly matching with housing offer letters that go out to the navigators so that they can share that information with applicants, and just regular ongoing communication with navigators and providers to schedule initial intake appointments after acceptance of the housing offer. And Camille already spoke about the continuum of care, and that is it for this presentation.
Okay, so we're going to turn the meeting back over to Mary to continue for housing and development. Mary, can you go ahead and unmute?
Angel, we had a question in the chat about when the next navigator training would be and how service providers can register for that.
I can, the actual training it's an online training with HMIS as well as coordinated access. So I can put my email address in the chat and the individual can reach out to me, and then, we can have a conversation about next steps.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, now we're going to discuss some eligible uses of the funds. Home ARP funds are available to support the hard cost of eligible projects. Housing Accelerator Fund.
Mary, this part is you might have to share your screen.
Oh. You can see it now?
Yes,
Yep.
there you go.
Okay, sorry. Eligible uses of funds. Home ARP funds are available to support the hard cost of eligible projects. Housing Accelerator funds are available to support both the hard and soft cost of eligible projects. Applications will be evaluated for eligibility under both Home ARP and Housing Accelerator funds. Applicants are encouraged to outline why one funding source may be more appropriate for their project than the other. So for the Housing Accelerator Fund, costs. They are eligible for architectural and engineering, environmental assessment and testing, acquisition, market and financial feasibility analysis, carrying cost, zoning analysis, staff time, development consultants, legal fees associated with closing, financing, and drafting legal documents necessary for development, and home ARP and housing accelerator fund monies can be used for development hard construction costs defined in 24 CFR 92.206 sub A. Ineligible uses of these funds are acquisition of city-owned properties, acquisition of properties through receivership, acquisition of properties through tax sale, staff that are not directly related to pre-development, construction, or maintenance of the project, general operating costs, such as rent, utilities, or operating supplies, relocation, repayment of existing loans or liens, community gardens or urban agricultural uses, projects as for specific religious or other affiliation, commercial, retail, or economic development uses, costs associated with the preparation of this NOFA submission. And how to apply. Well, only electronic submissions through the Neighborly application portal will be accepted. Applications must submit one complete online submission of the application. Applications are due by 4:30 Eastern Standard Time on November 20th, 2023. These are the resources for permanent supportive housing and copy of our pre-proposal webinar. And you can always contact us at a Housing Accelerator Program email address, housingacceleratorprogram@baltimorecity.gov. And I want to thank you all for participating, and we will open it up for questions.
Thank you, Mary. If anyone on the call currently has questions, you can feel free to use the raise your hand feature, and we will allow for questions at this time.
And we'll still be, and then I just got one more point to make. We also will still be answering questions in the chat, which I'm doing so also. So if you are unable to talk, please feel free to put those same questions in the chat. Thank you.
Okay, Vonette, absolutely, you have a question. You can go ahead.
Yes, I actually have two questions. One, it's unclear to me in the application, the distinction between if you're seeking housing accelerator funds versus the home ARPA funds, because it seems like if you elect for just the housing accelerator funds, you still have to make a commitment for permanent supportive housing if that's that. It doesn't seem like there's a distinction within the Neighborly application and say that you have to commit at least 25% of your units for those funds. So can you clarify that distinction? Because I was under the impression that housing accelerator funds, you did not have to do permanent supportive housing. And in your presentation, you said that you have to explain why, but I didn't really see a question in the Neighborly application to allow you to really explain why you were applying for one versus the other.
Ms. Paul, I can take a crack at the question, at least part of it. So in the Neighborly application, and I'm not sure, Ms. Vonette, if you actually went into Neighborly to start reviewing the application, but there is a question in the application where applicants are able to respond whether, to respond on with which program they plan to apply for. So if they plan to apply just for home ARP, then they can select that. They have it's a drop down menu saying exactly which funding or eligible uses they plan to be able to, they want to apply for the program for. And also there's a box, I don't have it in front of me as far as the application, but there's a box where applicant can actually describe and go into detail on their project, which funding source they plan to use the funds for, and what type of development they plan to have the actual development for. Does that
I
sort
did
of
see
answer
that.
what you?
Well, not quite. I did see the box where you get to check which funding source, but it doesn't seem to be any distinction between if you wanted to do just housing accelerator funds. The scoring criteria and the rest of the application seems to imply that you're doing permanent supportive housing. It didn't like say, okay, if you check this box, then you don't have to answer these questions. It appears that there's still a lot of questions are still geared towards providing permanent supportive housing. And so I just want to make clear that if you're applying for housing accelerated funds only, that we're not required to do permanent supportive housing or allocating 25% for permanent supportive housing, because it should be just you're providing affordable housing, correct?
Right. So just detail that in your project description. As far as the scoring goes, there is a category in the scoring where applicants who are providing permanent supportive housing, they will have certain points that applicants who will not apply for permanent supportive housing units won't get, because they just won't have them in their units. Because again, the priority for this program, as far as funding goes, is to create permanent supportive housing units. But like you mentioned, we still allow applicants who are interested in providing just affordable housing units and not PSH units to apply for the program. So again, the scoring criteria still breaks down overall project details, such as project feasibility, schedule, and bonus points described, but there is a specific scoring piece in the scoring of the applications where I think it's 25 points for applicants to potentially receive if they're providing PSH units in addition to completing the project.
Thank you, Paul. Shannon Snow.
Hi, I had a question about the project-based vouchers. So I understand that, that groups are encouraged to apply for the project-based vouchers in order to have a rental subsidy for the PSH units. And the voucher application, though, it does state that only 25% of units in a project can have project-based vouchers. I wanted to see if there is a waiver available for that, since that would essentially limit us to only being able to do 25% PSH units in a project, which I know is not the intent. So is there a waiver to be able to increase the number of units to have the project-based vouchers?
Good question, Shannon. And I saw that you reached out to Kevin as well. The Kevin from Baltimore City Housing Department, Housing Authority, reached back out to you about that question?
No, I've not heard back yet.
Okay. I'll reach out to Kevin. I'll respond to your email that you sent over to that, because I can't answer the question in regards to the waiver, since the PSH unit is coming from Housing Authority of Baltimore City. So I can respond to that same email to let Kevin know that this same question was brought up during this application webinar.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I
believe
don't
we have
I don't see any additional hands raised at this time. We did have some questions that were in the chat. If anyone has a question they put in the chat that was not addressed, you can raise your hand now. We can readdress your question.
Charlie, you can come off mute and ask your question.
Hi, sorry about that. I was trying to figure out how to raise my hand on this. So what's your annual organization's budget? Are they asking for the developer, the management company, or the program operator? Because I would assume that a lot of ours are either 3 of those entities on one application or 2 of those entities on one application. So the annual organization's budget, whose budget are you asking for?
The overall applicant. So whoever's going to be the primary applicant organization of the application, that's whose information that would need to be provided.
Okay, but so we're like we filed our 990 last year and we didn't really have much operating last year. So this is our first year of actually fully operational. So is that like a pro forma kind of budget, or because we're on our application, we were only able to submit 1 year of 990s. So what do we do in that scenario?
So that 990 that you all are able to provide should suffice. And you can provide, well, it will suffice, but what you can also do, and I had the same question come up with an applicant earlier this week, was for them to submit any, you can have an explanation on the reason why 2 years is not able to be provided.
Okay, so just select the option of the budget amount that corresponds with the 990 then.
Yep, and then still just upload it as it's requested in the application.
Okay. And you had mentioned the project-based vouchers, a contact. I can't seem to get a hold of anyone to get that letter of intent or to even start the process for that. Do you guys have someone that we can reach out to for that?
Absolutely. So we'll give you the contact, and I'll drop it in the chat to Kevin Gallagher. He's from Housing Authority of Baltimore City, and he's been our main contact throughout this process, as well as the person that applicants can reach out to inquire about project-based vouchers. So I'm about to drop that in the chat now.
Awesome.
Kevin Gallagher.
Ron Wilson, did you still have a question?
Yeah, I wanted to know if I could get a copy of your initial presentation that started at 1 o'clock. The slides that were generated then discussing the actual program.
Yes, we'll provide the entire session will be provided, as well as links to previous sessions that we've had and the slide decks that you saw today.
Okay, how will I get access to that? I mean,
So DHCD the DHCD website has a landing page for this particular NOFA where all presentations, so there's a presentation on permanent supportive housing, there's the initial pre-conference proposal, as well as the recording for this webinar that will be there, and the presentation will be listed there as well.
all right,
And
thank you.
I will drop the link to that in the chat.
All right, thanks.
I just dropped the link for the DHCD website, so you can find all of our information there.
Okay, thank you.
Williamson?
Hi, we're trying to do a permanent supportive housing project with all of the units being PSH. There's a question about the affordability. If a family that's coming into the unit has income that's below 30% AMI, but the family has a voucher or some sort of rental support through any number of different programs that provide rental support, we can still, accept the rent that we would get from the voucher. We don't have to like set the rent at 30% AMI, do we?
I can step in on that one. So as long as the household, because again, you'll have to, get that household certified as they move into the units. So that's funded through this program. So again, as long as the income of that household is at 30% of AMI, then they will meet the qualification to the compliance requirements of the program.
Okay, so it's all about like what the client's income is, not what the rent that they pay necessarily, because they could have rental assistance.
Right. So it still just needs to be a household at 30% of AMI.
Okay. Thank you for that. That's very helpful because it was definitely hard to figure out from the NOFA and the application. If you're doing renovation of existing units, like basically row houses, that really can't be changed into handicap accessible units? Can the UFAS requirement be waived? Or does that apply to Housing Accelerator?
That's a great question that I don't have the answer for. If no one else is able to respond to that, we can take that question and then get back with you.
Okay. And for like the Housing Accelerator Fund, Davis-Bacon doesn't apply, but city prevailing wage does apply. Is that correct?
So with Davis-Bacon, I believe on the home ARP side, that will apply. And then the city's prevailing wages, that will apply as well.
But not for the Housing Accelerator Fund if you're not applying for home ARP money?
What, for Davis-Bacon?
Correct.
Yeah, so you going back to my response. So yes, because these are federal funds, both Davis-Bacon as well as the city's wage requirements will apply.
No matter what program you're applying for.
Correct.
Okay, because it doesn't say that in the NOFA. It just says home ARP only. So that was the question I was asking. So Davis-Bacon does apply. All right. Well, thanks very much for answering those questions.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Thank you. I believe Patrick Wagner.
Yeah, thank you. Just following up on Vanette's question, is there a separate pool of funding for the permanent supportive housing units and the traditional affordable units that don't have PSH units? And if so, how much is each pool?
No. So again, it's all part of the same funding pool. Again, the main priority in this program with these program funds is to provide permanent supportive housing units. And again, that priority request is coming from the mayor's office as well as I believe the ARPA office. So again, it's all part, so it's all part of the same funding. So again, applicants, application, because that scoring breakdown that I mentioned earlier, that there's significant points or there's points added for providing permanent supportive housing units. Those that are not providing those units, there may be, they won't have that ability to receive that piece of the scoring. But we still encourage those who will not be providing permanent supportive housing units to still apply for those funds, because we do go through a thorough review process of applications, looking at the project itself, looking at how many affordable units they provide, et cetera. So again, this is not a way to discourage any applications that's not providing PSH units. But again, there is a priority to provide those PSH units in all projects.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, so basically, because we won't be able to select the the permanent supportive housing points, then you would go through and fund all of those eligible projects that do have those points first, and then if there's leftover funds, then the traditional affordable units would be funded after. Is that kind of how it works?
No, all projects will be reviewed. All successfully submitted applications that is submitted and goes through the threshold review process for an actual panel review of all applications. They will be reviewed thoroughly. And then, but again, I just want to make sure that it's known that there is a priority preference to provide those permanent supportive housing units. But I highly encourage anyone who's interested in applying for the program, whether or not you're going to have permanent supportive housing units, to still apply.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Patrick. We're going to hear from Charlie.
Yes, thank you. So this question is regarding the neighborhood or community interaction.
You're on mute, Charlie.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right, sorry about that. My question is surrounding the community interaction question or document proof or whatever have you. We all like to hope that communities are amenable to allowing permanent supportive housing in their community. Some of the more, let's say, affluent neighborhoods, they would be more opposed to it. So if you're not getting the feedback or you're not getting a response from the community at all, is that detrimental to your application, or what's your way around that issue? Because if you have a community that's just not in my community kind of mentality, then you're kind of stuck in the water with that particular proof.
Yeah, so I believe in the application we do break down, there is a request for applicants to provide details on how they had some community engagement in regards to like these PSH units. Again, it will be reviewed as part of the application. So if there's any details that you want to provide, whether you've done that or not, or if you have, you can provide a description of what was done in that process, and if that will be evaluated during the application process. Now, again, it's not a requirement, but again, it will be one of those items that is reviewed as part of the review process in the application.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any more questions that we need to address? I don't think I see any more hands raised.
Jasmine, I think we have a couple in the chat. I can read those out loud if you would like.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. We just have one that says, just to confirm, Davis Bacon applies to both home ARP and Accelerator, but city wage rates only applies to Accelerator. Paul, if you can give some highlight on that.
Yeah, I believe that's correct. Who sent that question? Because I can just send you back a response to that email just to make sure that we cover your bases as you're reviewing, you putting together your application. Who sent? That's
I think.
okay.
Okay, and then we also have Brendan with he was asking if there's an expected notification date for initial award commitments for the like HTC projects, or if they are the same date as a housing accelerator.
Yeah, so good question, Brandon. So with that, we are planning to, the application deadline closed the 20th of this month of November. And we're going to start the threshold review process pretty quickly after that, as well as the panel development process. Now we have discussed internally that we will give sort of conditional awards to applicants, conditional awards, to award information to applicants, as they go through the threshold process and towards the review, because we did have that in mind throughout this process regarding the tax credit application deadline. So applicants will hopefully be, we'll hopefully let them know, as they go through the threshold review process and towards review, that their award is conditionally, I'm not going to say approved, but is being reviewed for possible funding. So yeah, so Brandon, so basically, we'll notify applicants because we've already had people reach out asking the same question. So again, just be on the lookout if you do submit an application that goes to that threshold review process, and you will be contacted to let you all know that you all may be, you're all receiving the final review for potential awarding.
Okay, we have another one from Charlie. What is HCD repayment at the bottom of the pro forma? Not sure if that was discussed.
Yeah, Charlie, you can go off mute. You asked that question a couple of times. I just want to make sure I understand exactly what you're talking about, because I don't have the pro forma in front of me.
Yep. Yeah, it's at the bottom of the let me see if I can pull it up. It's at the bottom and it says about the repayment. I mean let's see here, DH. It's a yes or no question. on?
Well, these are grant funds, so there won't be any repayment. Again, you can send that same question over to me in the email as well, just so I can make sure that we're on the same page. But again, these are grant funds, so there shouldn't be any. In the template that we send over to you all for the pro forma as well as the budget is our normal template for all of our affordable housing programs. So some things may or may not apply.
Yeah, because at the bottom of it, when you pull it up in the document section, and speaking of the pro forma, I don't know if this is a typo. So you have CDA pro forma 202 form, and that's where the HCD repayment is asking. But then if you scroll further down, it says provide operating pro form.
Okay. Yeah.
As a required doc. Is it the same? Are you asking for the pro forma twice?
I had to take a look at that. We shouldn't be asking for that twice, but again, these are just templates. That's part of all our programs.
Okay.
So again, I would just highly recommend for you to whatever applies to your project, which again, or the required documents that we require to fill that information out. But any mention of about any repayment, again, these are grant funds, so there won't be any repayment as far with those at all.
So what do we put in? Provide operating pro form, PRO form. I'm assuming that meant pro forma, but you asked for it earlier in the further up in the document section.
I'll take a look at it.
Okay.
I'll send you a direct email.
All right. Thank you.
I think we have one more from Brendan. I think he was just still trying to confirm if it was whether or not allowed HTC. Brendan, were you did you get clarification for your answer?
There we go. Sorry, it wasn't letting me unmute because it said that I wasn't allowed to. Yeah, thank you, Paul, for the initial answer. I just wanted to make sure that the LIHTC notification date, which seems to be tied to the QAP schedule, is also going to be the date that non-LIHTC projects are going to get notification.
Yeah. So what's the LIHTC deadline again? The state LIHTC deadline?
I actually don't know off the top of my head. We are involved in one, but that's not the part that I'm involved in. I just remember in the summary that the summary of the this grant instructions that it was anticipated that by the end of December, LIHTC projects would be able to get a letter of support. So I was wondering.
They're saying December 15th in the chat.
Okay. Yeah, so Brandon, that letter of support, that's the same conditional award that I was referring to. So we will sort of put that letter of support together for applicants that pass the threshold review process and is moving forward towards the overall panel review of the application.
Right. Again, okay. So it doesn't really matter whether it's LIHTC or not.
No.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
But we do encourage those who are applying for LIHTC as part of their project, which we will know as well, in reviewing the application, because I believe that's one of the application questions. We will make note of those applicants to just let them know.
Got it. Thanks.
Yep, no problem.
Those are all the questions that we have for this meeting. And again, we encourage everyone, especially if you have questions that are detailed or specific to your individual application, to use the Housing Accelerator Program inbox so that we can address you directly. And I think that we have come to the end of our meeting. Again, we appreciate everyone's time and attendance today. and be on the lookout for the entire Zoom meeting. It will be attached to our DHCD landing page for the Housing Accelerator program. In the chat, many of our links have been placed so that you know how to contact us should you need any additional resources and assistance. Thank you all for your time. Have a great afternoon.
All right, thanks, y'all. Have a good one.